a lot of just complete debacles on this show so far. Let's talk about X, Charlie.
Not Twitter anymore.
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. This is episode 24 of season 2.
And just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Wednesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Monday, July 24th, 2023, at about 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, and before we get into it, just a couple of notes. First of all, we apologize for the late releases the last couple of weeks on our episodes. It's the summertime, so sometimes stuff gets a little bit wonky. We try to get episodes out every Wednesday, but sometimes they might be delayed by a day or two. So we do apologize for that. Also, C&C 5 is now back on YouTube, so make sure that you go check that out. A very busy show this week. Whole ton coming up here in this first section, politically. News out of Michigan, out of Alabama, the House hearing, Twitter continuing to destroy itself, more crazy stuff going on in the Republican primary, all the usual. Let's start, Charlie, with some news out of Michigan. You might remember back in 2020. December of 2020, so this was right after the election, right? December 14th, the Electoral College meets in their states, and they cast the electoral votes, and then they send them to Congress to get opened and certified on January 6th. So this December 14th date is kind of the second to last step of making the election official. So 16 people in Michigan decided to come to the state house and basically pretend to be electors and cast their own fake slate of electors for Trump. Charlie, obviously this is very illegal. Now they have been indicted.
Good, and they do deserve to be, because considering all the noise that the conservatives made about faking elections in 2020, it's interesting to see that part of their some of their members of the party have started to do that.
Yeah, now all 16 of these people have been charged with a count of conspiracy to commit forgery, which is a 14-year felony, 2 counts of forgery, also a 14-year felony, a count of conspiracy to commit othering and publishing, a 14-year felony, 1 count of othering and publishing, a 14-year felony, 1 count of conspiracy to commit election law forgery, a 5-year felony, and 2 counts of election law forgery, a 5-year felony. This comes from Kyle Griffin of MSNBC. All in all, it's estimated that if convicted, they could be looking at upwards of 30 years in prison time, Charlie. So this is not a light sentence, but this is a pretty big deal. I think just in terms of making sure that people know you're gonna get in trouble for doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's important to show that this kind of action will be punished.
Yeah, because this is very dangerous towards democracy, right? This could have worked.
This could have, and that if it had, that would have been extremely dangerous for the safety and election security of this nation.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, we were only a few people away in 2020 from the election being flipped. If just a few people had just not not done what their jobs told them that they needed to do, people like Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, for example, if they had flipped towards Trump, we could be looking at an entirely different situation right now.
Oh, absolutely. Moving on
Yeah,
now
and we'll get more. Yeah,
to
Charlie, real
Alabama.
quick, we'll get more to that later in this show because we have some updates on a Trump indictment later in the show. So,
Yes, we do.
that's very related.
Moving on now to Alabama, who has defied the Supreme Court now, and they're continuing trend to try to mess with the U.S. government. If you remember, on last week's episode, we were discussing that they were holding up some military appointments, I believe, that Colin was discussing, and now they've seemed to have defied the Supreme Court with a move to only make one majority black district for their election maps.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court ruled a few weeks ago, required to create a second majority black congressional district. And Alabama just basically just said, thanks for the suggestion, but we're not going to do that. And Charlie, that's incredibly dangerous because they've just basically said, nope, we're not going to listen to the Supreme Court, and you try to enforce it. That's a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, that's not how the Supreme Court works. You can't just not you may not agree with what they say, but you have to follow it.
Just follow it, and I mean, this is kind of what Andrew Jackson did back during his presidency. He didn't like a ruling by the Supreme Court. He said, "Good luck enforcing it." It's. I mean, does this mean that now we don't have to listen to the Supreme Court's rulings on abortion?
We'll see. I could definitely see some people making that argument, and we will see if they end up doing that, because that could deal a significant blow to the Supreme Court's conservative majority.
I mean, either way, it's incredibly dangerous when people do not listen to the courts.
Absolutely.
Moving on to a topic that I'll say I did not imagine that we'd be discussing, but there really does seem to be no bottom in our world right now. The House was holding an oversight hearing on who else but Biden, a noted non-member of the government. Now, why were they investigating him? I guess because his name's Biden. There's no clear reason why this is something that the House should be investigating. But who else but Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to go into the hearing and quite literally, I kid you not, show pornographic photos of Hunter Biden as if to prove some crime that he did, that he was doing pornography, which is not a crime. And even if Hunter Biden did commit crimes, first of all, okay, then arrest him. Second of all, it's not your concern in the House. That's up to the Department of Justice. There's people there investigating him. But also, why are you showing that on the floor? And then furthermore, in her newsletter that she sent out, there's no age limit, signed up for that. If you're under 18, you can sign up for that. Then, she included those photos, which means she could be liable for sending porn to minors.
Which I don't even need to tell you is a crime.
Yeah, and this is coming from maybe the person who most in all U.S. politics right now is like, porn is a sin and no porn. I mean, how did she even get her hands on this? Right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How did she get access to that?
I don't know, but it's more than just fishy. It is so beneath her office as a member of the House. They have turned the House of Representatives into a clown show.
Yeah, it's just unacceptable. The thought that this governing body actually knows what it's doing at this point and is working for the American people, while meanwhile people are showing porn in the House, is just ridiculous, and it's crazy to think about. It just makes me lose my trust in that institution.
And that's a good point, though. Like, how does that help anybody?
It doesn't, because I don't think those people care about helping the American people.
Well, no, they don't, right? I mean, was this whole Hunter Biden stuff that Republicans are mad about? Was it all about just wanting to see his nudes? That's what it seems like at this point. They haven't brought up any evidence. Well, they seem to have maybe shown some evidence that he committed crimes. Okay, good thing he's not an elected member of the government. If he committed crimes, guess what? I'm fully in support of them going after him, prosecuting him, putting him in jail if that is what's necessary.
Yeah, because if someone commits crimes, then they should be prosecuted for it.
But it's such a simple concept. But
it's not that hard.
I don't even know what to say at this point. There really is no bottom. All right, let's move on. Something only slightly
better,
less concerning. Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Charlie, explain more.
He has gone completely off the rails. Just absolute. It's just ridiculous things he's been saying. Certainly things that have been anti-Semitic, just absolute conspiracy theories at this point. And I think any chance that he had in his campaign is now completely and utterly gone.
Yeah, let's talk about that campaign, right? Because remember, he's running for the Democratic nomination for president, despite being backed by Steve Bannon and Roger Stone, despite his views aligning more with Republicans than Democrats.
I think he's only running as a Democrat because he thinks he has a better chance of beating Biden than beating Trump. Which is not correct either.
But like you have to understand, right? Like, this isn't a legitimate candidate. This is this cycle's Kanye West, a candidate that far right operatives put in the race just to create some chaos. Right? They don't want him to win. They don't think that he has a chance at winning. They're hoping that it can weaken Biden enough that maybe it'll help Trump.
Yeah, and that was the goal, and it didn't work. And I don't think it'll work this time either.
We'll see. Let's talk about talked about a lot of just complete debacles on this show so far. Let's talk about X, Charlie.
Not Twitter anymore.
Because somebody had just this tremendous idea to rename it X.
And Colin, may I ask why he's done this?
I mean, you can ask, but that doesn't mean that there's an answer, let alone a good one. I don't know what to say. I guess it's called X now because Elon really likes the letter X. He tried to name PayPal that, SpaceX. He literally tried to name his kid X, and now he's named Twitter X. I mean, X is copyrighted by Microsoft right now. The logo they've created letter X in a pre-existing font that someone else created. They don't hold the @X Twitter account right now. It's still @Twitter. Right? They were finally able to get X.com, which feels like a porn site, by the way.
It does. It sounds like one too.
What are they doing here?
I don't know. But
is it just as a joke?
I don't know, but something that I want to add, and I think is a really great response, is there's a fried chicken restaurant in the southeast called Bojangles. And if you're ever down there, I recommend it. It's really good. But they have rebranded themselves temporarily on Twitter as B. I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was pretty funny.
And also you're destroying 15 years of brand recognition for something
Absolutely.
that you can't trademark. What are you doing?
It just doesn't make any sense.
So stupid. Are you now gonna lose your trademarks for Twitter, for tweet, or retweet? Are you gonna, because it doesn't seem like a smart business move to lose those trademarks?
Yeah, it's just weird.
Are your videos that you posted, are they now going to be called X videos? Because that's going to
That's a
get you in
porn
a
site,
lawsuit.
I think.
Yes, it's literally a porn site. It's what are we doing here, folks?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Musk's for that one because I have absolutely no idea what he's doing. However, some of his things have worked out before, like Tesla and SpaceX, except when their rockets explode. But we'll see. Maybe this turns out to be a great move for them.
And when their cars explode, when Tesla's
and when their cars explode. Let's move to another political explosion, this time one that's pretty funny. Biden has a new advertisement out using one of the most insane marketing tactics that I've ever seen. Colin, care to explain?
Yeah, so this might be the greatest political ad of all time. Read Dan Pfeiffer's new piece on this. But political ads have trouble because the messages that they want to spread, maybe if they want to spread how they're doing well with the economy, is not the type of thing that gets the media excited, right? So the stuff that you want to be talking about is not the same stuff that's going to go viral. So you want to find a way to do both. And this new Biden ad does that. And it's kind of, as Dan Pfeiffer described it, lightning in a bottle. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene, the speech in which she said Joe Biden had the largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete. Programs to address education, Medicaid, medical care problems, rural poverty, education, Medicare, and he still is working on it. That's a pretty good sales pitch for Biden.
It does. It just sounds like a great campaign.
Biden used that speech in his ad with a bunch of videos of him doing the work layered on top of it for an ad that just went viral. Just the perfect political ad.
Yes, it is. And as we hinted at earlier in our show, we have some more news on Trump indictments. Colin, care to continue?
Yeah, so we could be pushing towards the third one this year, potentially as early as this week.
New
when
record.
It comes out, he'd be indicted again. This time for issues regarding January 6th and the overall effort in the lead up to that to overturn the election. We're not entirely sure what the charges may be, but we do know that he has received a target letter from Jack Smith, which likely means that the indictment is very near. In other words, when you receive a target letter, Charlie, it means they're going to indict you. And what's interesting about him getting a third indictment potentially soon is that he's probably going to get a fourth one in the next month as well.
Is that a record?
For what? For presidents?
For elected officials.
I don't know, because one is a record for presidents. But for elected officials, I don't know. But I know that he's already been charged with 71 counts. And by the end of this, he could be at well over 100. And his trial, by the way, in the documents
find
case
out.
has been set for May of next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. Speaking of Republican president attempted at presidents and presidential campaigns, DeSantis, whose campaign has been an absolute disaster, has decided to relaunch his.
Yeah, he's relaunching it because it's not going well. What's the betting that he's going to relaunch it on X again?
Doubtful, considering how badly it went last time. If you remember, we talked about that on our show. I don't remember what episode, but we could link that in the description of this episode.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, Charlie, for DeSantis is that it doesn't matter your campaign strategies. You can't change the candidate. And it's
No,
not
and
just about the policies. It's about his charisma, which is awful.
I wanted to add, have you heard his what his slogan is?
What is it?
Make
I don't think I've
America
heard this.
Florida.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. It's bad. And then you're not posted a picture of him with a Nazi symbol.
When was this?
I don't know. And then the other big thing about DeSantis right now is that in Florida, they have they obviously they've done a lot of changing in education standards in Florida.
Yep.
The big one right now is everybody mad. So they are now going to teach people that people learned skills while they were enslaved that they could use for their own personal benefit. Or in other words, people benefited from slavery.
I'm sorry, what? Okay, well, that's
Florida
certainly
students are going
something.
to learn.
From everyone here at the C&C Talks podcast, please do not vote for this guy.
Right? Here's the thing, right? If that's what you're going to teach about slavery, is it that much of a stretch to say to bring it back?
I mean, that is very. They could very well start saying that, and they might, and that's very
given
scary.
That there's no given that there's no outrage from the right, is that something that they actually believe? Could you get Ron DeSantis on the record and say that slavery and get him to say that slavery was bad?
Doubtful.
And if you can't, and then he said, but no, I don't think we should bring it back. Well, then ask him why. After all, you don't think it's bad.
Yeah. And from New Hampshire, Governor Chris Sununu has decided to retire. New Hampshire is one of the only states to have 2-year governor terms, and this really leaves the door open for Democrats to win that governorship, considering that Sununu was a Republican.
He is Republican. New Hampshire, a slightly blue state, but Sununu, a very, very well-liked governor in the state of New Hampshire, easily winning elections there. So Democrats now, they, like you said, they will have a real shot now.
Moving to the world stage now, and for the second week in a row, Netanyahu has been hospitalized. This time it's for a heart procedure. Netanyahu, of course, is the leader of Israel. And meanwhile, while he's in the hospital, his entire country is protesting against him. Why is that, Colin?
Yeah, so Israel has a new law. This was something I believe we've talked about many times several months ago, possibly last season. And they were trying to pass a law to limit the Supreme Court's powers in Israel. They put that on hold. Now it looks like they've passed it. Basically, limiting the Supreme Court's powers, Charlie.
Yeah, which is not good for Israeli democracy, as you might imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about here in America, Alabama just defying the Supreme Court. Authoritarianism having a moment.
Yes, it is. Let's move on to sports. Colin, in your first episode back from C&C 5, you were talking about the Women's World Cup, so I will let you take that segment.
Yeah, as of this taping, we have played all except one game of the first match day of the World Cup group stage, which means all but two teams, Colombia and South Korea, have played one game in this World Cup. And so far, a few surprises. New Zealand went off in the opening match, pretty big upset over Norway, as Switzerland unsurprisingly took down the Philippines, and it was actually a really good match. Switzerland, a controversial penalty kick that, if you ask me, it according to the rules, it was a foul, and according to the rules, it was inside the penalty box. It's a PK, but my problem is with the rules. If you're gonna, if it's not a play that was, the foul would have prevented that from being a good shot at the goal. It was largely inconsequential. He was barely inside the penalty box, and yet turned into a PK with a chance at a goal. And there's not a lot of chances at goals in soccer. It'd be like if a free throw was worth 50 points. So
Yes,
to me, the rule needs some adjusting, Charlie.
I agree with that. It is really unfortunate that that penalty did end up happening. I did not agree with it, but rules are rules for now.
So
Unless
Group A,
unless you're Alabama.
yeah. So right now, Group A, Switzerland and New Zealand 3 points apiece. They'll face off in the final match day of that group. Group B with Australia, the other host nation, they also won their opening game against Ireland. Canada and Nigeria, a close 0-0 tie. Canada, the big chance of the PK, they missed. Group C, it's Japan and Spain with 3 points apiece. Costa Rica and Zambia, both lost. Both blowouts. No, Japan and Spain, I feel like almost certainly two countries that will move on, as was expected. Same thing in Group D, Denmark and England, 3 points apiece. China and Haiti, none. Although this group, both of these games, 1-0 finishes, much closer, I think most people anticipated. Group E, the United States, they won their opening game against Vietnam. Decent. They're definitely going to have to pick it up, especially against the Netherlands in their next match, if they really want to be able to make a run at a three-peat. They could be the first team ever to do that. Netherlands, they also picked up a win over Portugal. U.S. and Netherlands, they faced off in the finals in 2019, faced off in the group stage here Wednesday night. Group F, Brazil, 3 points after a win over Panama by 4. France and Jamaica, they tied at 0-0. Group G, South Africa, they got an early lead on Sweden, surprisingly, but Sweden was able to come back. Those 3 points as Italy also took down Argentina. Sweden and Italy, 3 points apiece. Germany, and in Group H, a big win over Morocco, and Colombia and South Korea playing later. So that's it currently for the Women's World Cup.
We also have some news from the MLS, as Messi has debuted for Inter Miami and got a key free kick goal that ended in Miami winning.
Yeah, so this was not a regular MLS match. This was in the Leagues Cup. It was kind of a tournament between Mexican League and Major League Soccer. But yeah, Messi, a key contributor for Miami in that game. Could be big things not only for the success of that team, but really for the success of Major League Soccer as a whole, just getting interest in soccer here in America and also international interest in Major League Soccer.
Oh, absolutely. Let's move on now to the British Open, which I will give to Colin.
Yeah, the final golf major of the year was not an exciting one. It was Brian Harman with honestly a pretty shocking win, but it was a blowout. 13 under par. Next closest people, 7 under, which was a 4-way tie. This one fell over by honestly the end of the second day. Harman got a lead. He did not give it up. Moving on.
Moving on to some great news for everyone in DC. Dan Snyder has finally decided to sell the Commanders, and that sale has now finally gone through. So even if the Commanders don't win any games this season, they've got the only win they need right here.
Dan Snyder, obviously, just an all-time bad owner. And now
Indeed.
maybe Commanders fans can look forward to a new stadium, maybe?
And maybe a new name. I've seen that the ownership is looking into possibly changing the name again.
Yes, I'm curious about that. What do you think about the name Commanders?
I feel like it was kind of a rush to name that they needed to change because obviously they didn't want to stay with Washington football team. And of course that was only a problem because they refused to change from Redskins from so long.
And thank goodness that they changed it from that.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like they could definitely do better. I think that they should probably try to keep the colors scheme if they can, just because it is kind of iconic. But try to change the name. We'll see where it goes. Let's talk, Charlie, about the Pac-12 because it's a disaster right now. They kept promising we'd have our media rights deal done, which is the most important thing that a major sports conference can do because it brings in so much money. It's what keeps teams in, or what keeps schools in the conference. Saying we'd have it done. Their current deal, which is mostly with ESPN and Fox, expires at the end of this upcoming season. So they kept saying we'd have it done by our media day in Vegas, which was this past Friday. They kept saying, oh, we're really close all throughout the last year. They still haven't announced one. It's still not clear that we're even close to getting one. And this is hurting them. San Diego State was maybe going to join the Pac-12 if they could get a deal done by June 30th. It looked like San Diego State might join. That didn't happen. Currently, no expansion with San Diego State right now.
And of course, the Pac-12 really hurting after losing UCLA and USC.
Yeah, this will be those two schools' final season in the Pac-12 as well before they move to the Big Ten.
Let's move to the NFL now, where several teams have announced throwback jerseys for 1 week only during the season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be going back to their classic creamsicle orange uniforms. I don't remember who they're playing or what week that is, but I know that they are going to do it at some point of the season. The Tennessee Titans are going back to the Houston Oilers uniforms for a week. The Browns are switching it up with an old classic uniform, as well as the Seattle Seahawks in Week 8 against the Cleveland Browns are going back to their old classic 1980s jerseys.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's just a biased take to say that the Seahawks are the best. They might be the best jerseys in the league right now.
The Seahawks jerseys, the old ones are really good. I would say the only one
so good.
The only ones of the retro ones that are anywhere close to that is Tampa Bay, just because that orange is just classic.
Yeah. Curious, though, what you think about the Titans going back to the Houston Oilers era. I feel like that should be maybe left for Houston. I feel like that would be something that we would be really mad if the Oklahoma City Thunder decided, hey, let's wear a throwback Sonics uniform, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, though. But yes, I agree. I think if you're going to do Oilers, you have to let the Texans do that. I understand it's the same team, but it just doesn't seem right. But admittedly, I will say it is different. I think it is different with the NBA, considering that Houston still does have an NFL team. Speaking of which, NBA, bring back the Sonics, please. And that actually
let's talk about expansion real quick.
It's going to happen.
When?
The question is when.
Yeah, and do we still think, Charlie, that Seattle and Vegas are the favorites, or could another city, maybe Mexico City, be in there?
If I'm thinking if they add Mexico City, I don't think that they want to do that. Mainly because I would say either Vegas or Mexico City. I don't see them adding both of those. Just
That
because
might be true.
those two are relatively close to each other, I feel like you would be drawing much of the same audience. I feel like a lot of people that I don't know too many people in Las Vegas. I know a couple people who are there every so often. And I think generally, just in terms of maps and fan demographics that I've seen, Vegas fans generally either root for the California teams or root for Phoenix anyway. Seattle doesn't really have a team to root for because I don't think a lot of Seattle fans enjoy watching the Trailblazers.
Well, no, especially since the Trailblazers are just stupid and have no idea what to do with themselves.
Admittedly, I'm not saying that if the Sonics come back that they wouldn't be bad. They probably would be for a few years. But Seattle needs its basketball team back.
Definitely. Let's talk, Charlie. We're getting kind of down into the last couple of months of the MLB season. Let's talk some awards predictions. Let's start with the MVPs. I think this is pretty easy. Who are your favorites in the AL and NL?
Ohtani, and if he gets traded to the NL, also Ohtani.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I think Ohtani, obviously, in the AL. In the NL, let's assume that Ohtani stays on the Angels. I'm going to go Acuna, Charlie.
Yeah, me too.
Let's go Cy Young. Who are your picks?
I have not been paying very much attention to NL, but I'm going to say AL. I'm going to go Ohtani again. I know he hasn't had the greatest year on the mound, but just the fact that he's done so well at the plate and on the mound is just, I feel like he deserves it. If not him, I'd say Nathan Eovaldi for the Texas Rangers.
I'm going to go to Zack Gallen in the National League.
And Zack, I'll take Zack Gallen as well.
Pick that you're going to be kind of shocked by, Charlie, in the AL.
Are you going Garrett Cole?
He will win. I'm saying I think he should win. No, I'm not going Cole.
Is it Luis Castillo?
No.
Give me your
Felix
pick.
Bautista. Felix Bautista.
Why?
Been so good this year. Array of like 0.91. He's just absolutely dominated every time he's come out from the bullpen for the Orioles. He's the huge part of that team's success, right?
Yeah, but he's trying to steal King Felix from Hernandez, so
that's not on him.
That's on the team, but I still don't like that. But yeah, I agree. He's a great player. I just don't know if relievers can win can win Cy Young anymore.
But Rookie of the Year, still Corbin Carroll in the National League.
Give me it. It's either Corbin or De La Cruz. If he can keep it up, give me Carroll just based on the fact that he's been here the entire season.
Yeah.
And in the NL, this is AL. Sorry, this is difficult. Give me Gunnar Henderson from the Orioles.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the same thing. Lots of people are talking Yoshida right now. Just think Gunner's been just a bit better.
Gunner has been better. All right.
And then finally, let's go managers, Charlie. Your picks.
Oh, this is I don't really know the names of any of the managers. Do you know who the manager for the Orioles is? I'll just give you the teams. Yeah, you probably know the managers.
Brandon Hyde.
Give me Orioles and Reds.
Ooh, okay. I don't even know who the Reds manager is, but that's a good pick too. Give me not anybody but Buck Showalter in the
David
NL.
Bell.
Oh yeah, David Bell. Because boy, has Buck Showalter been a disaster. I think that Bell is a good pick. Snicker also for the Braves could be a good pick, except that the Braves have just been so good for the last several years. Or the Marlins manager, is that Skip Schumacher? I think. Although the Marlins have been on a big losing streak. In the AL, give me Bruce Bochy of the Rangers.
Ooh, I like that pick.
Yeah. And finally, Charlie, before we close, you want to talk F1?
I do. The Hungarian Grand Prix was this past weekend. Hamilton actually secured pole as a 104th pole of his career, breaking Max Verstappen's streak of getting, I believe, every single pole this season, though Perez might have gotten one. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, Hamilton fell backwards right off the start. The McLarens couldn't get going, and Verstappen won by 33 seconds. That's it for the F1 update. It's sprint weekend this weekend in Belgium before we head to the summer break. But one team I do want to emphasize is Alpine, who both in Britain and in Hungary had both their cars DNF due to engine failures.
Charlie, when's the closest time that Verstappen could clinch the championship?
I believe if he wins every single race, he can clinch it in Singapore, which is in mid-September. But you have to remember that basically all of August is summer break, so there's no races. So I think Singapore is in 4 races time, I believe.
Okay, so not that long. A dominant season from Verstappen.
Yeah, so
far.
if he does win in Belgium, all he needs to do is win in his home race in the Netherlands and then win in Monza before he can clinch it in Singapore.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening. Should you subscribe, because we have episodes every single Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit our website, cctalks.net, to learn everything about our show, and call us with your questions at 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And follow us on. We're still going to call it Twitter.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at Twitter for now.
Yeah. For producer Morris, production designer Zack, and group editor Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. We'll see you next week.